Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Well, let's kick things off by telling you that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has called for the promotion of unity, stability and economic justice for all citizens of Nigeria. The president made these remarks during a meeting with Nigerians in Paris, France, as part of his visit to the country for the two-day Global Financial Pact Summit. President Tinubu acknowledged the numerous challenges faced by Nigeria, including transportation, electricity, and infrastructure. He emphasized the urgent need for focused attention and swift action to address these critical areas and ensure the well-being of the Nigerian people. The interactive session provided an opportunity for Nigerians in attendance to express their gratitude to the president for engaging in discussions about policies and programs that could contribute to the development of Nigeria. Many present shared their thoughts and ideas on how to enhance various sectors back home, highlighting the importance of collaboration between the government and the citizens.
Nigeria belongs to all of you, all of us. Our diversity is an asset if we know how to use it for our prosperity. Born of the same father, in the same house, except living in different rooms. We must promote unity, stability, and economic justice for every one of us.
Meanwhile, President Tinubu has commended the African Development Bank for its $520 million investment in specialized agro-processing zones in Nigeria. Well, according to him, the investment will create job opportunities and alleviate poverty in the country. The commendation came during a meeting between President Tinubu and Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, the president of AfDB, which took place on the sidelines of the Global Financial Pact Summit in Paris. Dr. Adesina highlighted the significance of the specialized agro-processing zones and commended President Tinubu for his efforts in maintaining macroeconomic and fiscal stability, which include the removal of fuel subsidies and harmonization of exchange rates.
Well, first and foremost, it was a great opportunity for me to see His Excellency President Tinubu, to personally commend him for the thoughts and the ideas that he has brought to the summit right here in Paris. Of course, I'm here in Paris, and so we discussed so many things. But first and foremost, I think I commended him for his boldness, his vision, his determination with regard to having macroeconomic stability and fiscal stability for Nigeria. And as you know, I spoke at the inauguration lecture for His Excellency the President. I commended his boldness in removing the very inefficient fuel subsidies that Nigeria has, and no bird can fly if his wings are tied at his back, and therefore that will really help Nigeria significantly. And I think the whole issue of correcting the exchange rate distortions that Nigeria has will also free up the access to Forex and also make Nigeria's currency much more competitive in terms of export competitiveness for the things that we produce. All those are right signals that the president is sending, which investors like, with the international community likes, which will also attract significant amount of investment into Nigeria. I discussed with His Excellency the President about a couple of things. First, of course, is agriculture, to see what we can do to support the government with regard to the Mr. President's vision in agriculture. We discussed about special agro-industrial processing zones, for which we already have about $520 million for Nigeria, and how we are going to make sure that that project actually gets accelerated to give quick wins to the president. The other one that we talked about is the power sector. How we will bring support to his efforts and his vision and that of his government with regard to how to improve the access. The president wants to make sure that there's access to electricity in Nigeria, and therefore he talked to us about how we can support him in that, and I gave him the assurance that we will, support significantly the power sector in Nigeria. I discussed with the president also with regard to the industrial sector in Nigeria. I was impressed with his vision in terms of trying to grow industrial sector in Nigeria and to also have an export-oriented industrial manufacturing stance, which is very important for growing the forex for Nigeria. As I said to the president, we have to grow the forex for Nigeria as opposed to just distributing small amount of forex that is available, have a more expansive view. The Excellency has that expansive view, and I was quite impressed. And finally, we discussed about the youth. I've heard him speak quite a lot about young people, his heart for young people and what he wants to do to support them. And he asked for our support with regard to what we can do for Nigeria on that. And I explained to the president that we will support with the establishment of youth entrepreneurship investment banks in Nigeria. These are going to be new financial institutions that will support the access to financing at scale, both whether it is in terms of debt or equity financing for businesses of young people in Nigeria. He has a desire to grow the wealth for young people, which is actually very good. And just to close, I had the opportunity just to commend him for what he said and the positions he took here at the summit on two critical issues. One of that has to do with the importance of using Nigeria's gas to manufacture fertilizers. And I think his position was supported by the Chancellor of Chancellor Scholz of Germany on the need for using natural gas. You can use that for also producing fertilizers, in which we need to raise productivity.
All right. Well, I guess we will join President Tinubu in, congratulating or commending the African Development Bank for its, investment in specialized agro-processing zones. I mean, I think that it is a great area that we should look into. But you know that President Muhammadu Buhari has been a great advocate for growing what we eat. I mean, I would like to know, how he fared in that regard. I mean, is President Tinubu's administration going to be different with this investment? I mean, those are the questions a lot of people are asking at this point. I believe that, at one point, President Tinubu, President Buhari closed our borders, but I'm hearing now that, the borders are wide open. And the smuggling of rice has, started all over again. But, let's see how this goes. I think this is a great achievement that came out of this Global Finance Summit in France, for one. I mean, this is one thing that I have seen so far. But the other video that we played as well, where President Tinubu met with Nigerians in France, he talked about, our diversity being our greatest asset. I mean, it is a no-brainer. This is, I'm glad that he was even able to share that, considering how deeply polarized we are as a nation at this point. Yeah. Steve?
Well, first and foremost, I think that from what we have seen so far, it wasn't a bad outing for President Tinubu being his very first international assignment, standing on the global stage and everything. But first to correct, I think that the immigration of the customs came out to clarify about opening up of the borders and something like that.
We're hearing that, yeah.
That they're still closed, that there isn't any information about that. But I like you referencing, the agreed part of what the AfDB is doing, and it is everybody's hope that President Tinubu will continue along the path of what Buhari, did in making sure that we grow what we eat and we eat what we grow. With support from institutions like the AfDB. I like the fact that Dr. Akinwumi Adesina also emphasized the area of youth development and in particular, power. Those are important areas that the new administration will need to work on. I hope that he did speak more with the president than what he shared with journalists, in Paris, given the fact that Dr. Adesina himself, if you recall, his name cropped up during the events leading to the primary elections of the APC, as having picked the form to be president. We wouldn't know who paid the 100 million, by the way, on his behalf, and at what point he became an APC member. It was a silent kind of transition, but then his name cropped up. My point is that at least it looked like they felt that he could be president. And because he's now president, and Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is president, so let's hope that he did share in detail some of the things that he would have considered doing if those who were trying to promote him as president had succeeded. But what is important, I also like how the president carried himself from the clips that we've seen, speaking with Nigerians in the diaspora, in this instance, in France, and a few other people who flew in, like the gentleman footballer who came in from Spain, and signed, a jersey for him. I think that the president spoke like a statesman, and spoke about the fact that Nigeria, needs to be one, and we should realize, I believe, what we already know, that we're one people. We might be diverse, different in culture and everything, but we are Nigerians, and that should be enough in making us the true giants of the continent that we are. However, those two clips that we have played and everything about this Paris thing were on the sidelines of the event itself. So we are seeing the president speak to Nigerians in Paris. We are seeing Dr. Adesina go to the president on the sidelines of the financial summit. But then we really haven't, beyond the pictures of the president sitting in audience or meeting, being welcomed by Emmanuel Macron, who's a great lover of Africa, by the way. We really haven't heard the president speak, or maybe the videos are not out, or maybe the text of what he said directly, like the president of South Africa, who seemed to me to have taken charge, almost like the leader of the African delegation at that summit. I mean, it would have been interesting to know, given that it wasn't just a financial summit, it was also a summit that was very much about, climate action. And if you recall what the President Tinubu, while he was still an aspirant, in October of 2022, said in Kano about the radical ideas that he had about climate change. I was hoping that, the event where he spoke about church rats and poisoned chalice. I think the words that he used were poison holy sacrament or something like that.
Yeah, he had a lot of backlash with that.
Well, I mean, it was explained why he had to use that analogy and everything, So I was hoping, because of the radical nature of what he had in mind and what it was explained that he was trying to do, that would have been the stage that he needed to push it forward on climate action, on debt relief and stuff like that. But apparently we didn't get to see much of that. What we have now heard is that the president has left Paris for London,
private visit in London.
I'm not sure how that sounds in terms of international diplomacy, because initially what we were told that he would return on Saturday, but then could it be that something of an emergency, happened, that he had to go to the UK, and then he would return before the Salah holidays. In his first 1 month, less than 1 month in office, first assignment, went well, as we have discussed, but then he needed to stop over somewhere else to attend to private matters. I'm not sure how that sounds, but hey, he's the president.
He's got to do what he's got to do.
Africa, all the other leaders have gone back to their country. Why hasn't he returned, right? I mean,
I think the optics are looking really good. Like you said, maybe we haven't really narrowed down on the actual details of the deals that, the president was supposed to be looking at during this financial summit. But I've seen the interview that Mr. Lake granted the pressmen after, that the president himself has received a lot of commendations for the policies that he has put in place. And of course, the financial markets right now is indicating that if he continues with these steps, that we're going to be seeing a favorable trend. It's also important to note that it also stated that some heads of state were impressed. He did mention US, France, and Switzerland, and then other financial institutions that fall within this bracket were very impressed with what he has done. I think it was interesting that Mr. Adesina highlighted the significance of the specialized. Sorry? No, I'm now talking about Dr. Adesina now, who highlighted the significance of the specialized agro-processing zones. He commended the efforts of President Tinubu, saying that it's maintaining macroeconomic and fiscal stability. But I don't know how that necessarily translates to what that I'm here in Lagos, Nigeria, I'm seeing every day, and the stories that I'm hearing. It's a very interesting place to be, because it seems as if there's a lot of policies that are being done, but the effects are so adverse. And we're looking at fuel subsidy. We're looking at, you know, the new floating of the unification of the dollar exchange, of the naira and dollar window. And then now we're looking at the possible increment of electricity tariff. So if you combine all of these things, I'm not sure how that in itself it looks like, feels like a good thing for Nigerians. But then again, I remember we had Madam Hadiza yesterday, and she said, you know, you just have to bite the bullet and, you know, look down and just wait until everything almost stabilizes. But definitely very good optics, very good steps being put out there by the president. Hopefully he returns back to Nigeria before Salah. Would love to see him and, you know, hear from him when he comes back from that break.
Well, all right.